Really should just solder a battery connector onto this. A lot less fiddly. Ooh! Light up logo! It's freezing at 4th Avenue Guitars at the minute, so I've got my little fan heater going. So I apologise for any background noise. I'm just going to talk as loudly as possible, or just cut out all my talking altogether. Nobody really wants to listen to me. Talk nonsense most of the time. So I've got the back of the fretboard routed out for the LED lights. I've taken the little framework out. It's all soldered together, tested and wired up, and if I remember which way around it goes, there we go, all works and lights up. It looks super cool. Knocking over super glue. I need to get the fretboard itself tapered and bound and ready to attach to the neck before I can finally fix all the LEDs in place, and we're going to fill the top of the holes and then re-smooth it all. What else do I need to do? I had a list of jobs for this, but I don't know where it's gone. Hopefully in the not too distant future I can get this attached to the neck, and I can get the top attached to the body, and then we can see about getting a neck pocket cut and actually getting this thing guitar shaped, because I'm really looking forward to that, and then running some wires and testing it to see how it all looks lit up, because gratuitous prettiness is far more important to look at than progress on building. We can spend as much time as we want building things, but unless we stop to look at how fancy it is and get distracted, we actually remain vaguely productive. That doesn't make sense. Now, I'm going to keep getting distracted by shiny things. I don't care. It's called the Magpie for a reason. So I've got this jig here that I've made. It's basically just the same as every other jig I use, really. I could condense all my straight line jigs into one if I really thought about it, but that'd be too easy. So I've got this one here, which again, it's two parallel faces. I've got some little clamps that hold the fretboard down, measure out whatever taper I want on it. Blade cuts along this face, the fence runs on this face. Cuts a perfectly straight line along wherever you do it. So I'll be running this through the table saw, which will give me a taper on this side, then I'll flip it round, get the taper on the other side, and then we can see about planing it and getting some binding in place. So that's now tapered. Everything sits inside the edge nicely. So what I need to do is measure this, double check where I'm at, and probably, well, definitely plane the edges a little bit to give me just the right thickness, to then remember where I put my binding strips and start thinking about attaching them. They're over here. got the taper cut and planed, and I've given it a quick sand just to give the glue something to key in onto. I need to attach some binding. I've got the offcuts from the fretboard blank that I salvaged, and I could just attach them like this and use them as essentially kind of, it would give the effect of blind fret slots, but I quite like the effect that you get with a veneer between them. So it's just a very subtle line, but it picks out the detail and just gives you a little bit more, just more. So I'm going to have to cut some veneer. I've got some of this white maple, I think it was, veneer left over from the neck. So I'm going to have to cut a couple of thin strips from this, which is nice and easy. Use my favourite scalpel. So as with everything, I like to do a test fit before I actually glue anything together. So that's going to have a nice thin stripe, which you can see a lot better on the back at the moment. But that will be my fretboard. So what I want to do first is put those strips to one side. I just want to go over it again with the fret saw, make sure all my fret slots are nice and clean and deep enough. It's important. And then we'll see about getting the binding glued up. This is my new and improved, I've just thrown it together now, jig for gluing up fretboard binding. I've seen lots of different variations and ways of doing it. You can literally tape it on, you can use super glue and hold it in place. I like to use Titebond. I always use wooden binding, so why not use wood glue? Essentially I've got a straight edge here and a straight edge here. This one is currently screwed and glued to a flat board. This one isn't attached at the moment. I put some greaseproof paper down. Waxed paper would be the ideal, but I'm tight and I refuse to buy things when I've already got something that will serve the same purpose. Also, I'm using what I've got. So essentially I get this all lined up, squeeze it together, I'll screw this down, and then I'll take it out, put glue on it, put it all back in, tap it up with a hammer, and that will just clamp it all in nice and tight, because the taper is nice and even, and so the taper on these will be the same, and it'll obviously get narrower towards this end and clamp it nice and evenly. And then I'll just stick it off to one side, and this will dry and I'll have a bound fretboard. While the fretboard binding's gluing up, I need to try and find a way to get my headstock logo to light up. So I've got a piece of aluminium here I'm going to cut the logo from. I'm going to try and sit it in with a little bit of a border around it and hopefully get an LED behind it so that border lights up. I'm still not 100% on how I'm going to do it, but I think I need the inlay logo cut out first, so that I can have a bit of a puzzle and figure out where I'm going to put some holes and run the wiring through here to make that work. For anyone who follows my Instagram, you might remember the last time I did this, I had a day where nothing went quite right. So I've already cut 2 of these for this guitar. One of them melted, and the other one is somewhere in pieces amongst a pile of stuff the other side of my workshop. Not sure where, it still hasn't turned up. So I'm going to do this one very differently and not balls it up. I would suggest when you get blades for your jeweler's saw to do inlays and things, get nice expensive ones. Well, not necessarily expensive, just nice ones. I'm using up a stock of cheap and nasty ones, and I guarantee I will break at least 4 in the time it takes me to make this. It's a false economy, but I've got them, so I'm going to use them. And there's one. I've finished cutting out the inlay, and this is a first for me. I'm going to try and get some LEDs behind it. So I've actually attached the aluminium logo that I've done to some it's clear plastic. It's not quite perspex, but it's about 1mm thick. So I've cut that a fraction wider all round than the aluminium, and I need to inlay that into here, get that all nice and snug, and then figure out where I can fit some actual light behind this, and then find a way to run the wires to join onto the fretboard. So I'm thinking what I can do is set this inside the headstock, and then when I've got that sat comfortably at the right level, if I probably cut maybe 2 or 3 cavities that I can fit LEDs in, I then have to do some fiddly wiring to get the LEDs in there. They can sit underneath this. This will all get glued in on top, and the lights will sit behind and light through this clear plastic. And then if I use super glue or epoxy around it, that dries clear as well, so it will still just shine a nice border around my 4th Avenue logo. It could fail miserably, but what better time to try it than now when I've got a stunning neck roughed out and I'm ready to go with it. So we're going to start off. I've attached it down to a piece of masking tape where I want it on the headstock. I'm just going to score around it with a scalpel. Well, now I know that the inlay fits, I need to take the kit back out and somehow run some LEDs. So So let's attempt to remove this, which may be easier said than done. There we go, that's one end. It's definitely a good snug fit. Okay, right. So what I need to do is find where I put my LEDs because I tidied up. What a cretin. But I realised that a bit of a tidy up was probably a good move if I was going to be doing these. So, let's have a look. To figure out whether 2 or 3 is going to be the best number to use. What I'm probably going to do is use 1 resistor for 3 of these rather than a resistor per LED, and create a small kind of ladder of them to fit inside here, and then I'll have to run the tunnel essentially from here down to here where they'll join on. Then the wire and probably the resistor as well can hide inside this little hole here. So I'm going to create my little ladder LED bar, whatever you want to call it, here, which will give me exactly what I need to put lights underneath. I've got my LEDs wired together and the little extension lead on there to bring it through into here. Now what I need to do is find a way to get this from here to here. So I'm going to I'm going to create some spaces in here for the LEDs to sit in, and then a channel for the legs to sit flush, and then I'm going to have to use this drill bit to get from here to here, which is quite a scary prospect because it's a very small narrow space to get through, and it's a blind hole at the end, so I'm not going to be doing a whole lot of talking whilst I do it. I'm just going to be panicking the whole way. But the first thing, let's get some spaces for the LEDs in the headstock. Got that through, and we need to test it. So that was a bit. Oh yes. Right, let's have a quick test with the logo on in place. Oh yes, that is perfect. We just need to glue it all in place now.